So welcome everybody. It's such an honor and pleasure to have everybody here, and it's such an honor to have David Sachs here. And I was telling David as he was coming in, so this takes us a full circle. It was about 8, 9 years ago that I started my practice on Shimon Bar Yochai's yard side, and David came to Sudat Hodaya that we did, the thankfulness meal that we did. And Baruch Hashem, David is here tonight to share his wisdom. Baruch Hashem, we've been able to do this beautiful series. I got inspired by my friend Nuriel Shore, who did this healing series. He did the Omer Aliyah series, and I said, "What about a Omer Healing Series with all our different healers in the community?" We had Ben Sion the first night. We had Josh Lebo, I spoke one night. We have David Sachs as a spiritual leader and healer, because it all starts in the mind, right? The healing. And I know for myself, for the past 25 years of knowing David Sachs and being inspired by him, and it really heals my soul. And that's where it all starts. And without further ado, b'chavod.
I'm glad I'm here. So thank you, Roy. Thank you for this opportunity and to connect with Omer more deeply and to connect with Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And this today is not just it's not just a holiday. Today is an opening, and and that's the most healing thing in the world, is that it's an opening. And then maybe I would go even a step further. It's not just an opening, it's the opening of openings. For those of us who had the pleasure, the honor to learn with Reb Shlomo over the years, whatever holiday you were learning about was the holiest day of the year. And when he explained it, it really was the holiest day of the year. It wasn't a joke, it really was. So this is absolutely the holiest day of the year. And you know why it's the holiest day of the year? Because it's right now. That's why. And so there's a bunch of ideas that I want to share with you, but I think that let me just start by saying the most simple idea, most simple idea, which in a way is the most profound idea. And it's, if you want to talk to someone who maybe is not familiar with these concepts, it's very easy to lose them quickly, because there's so many things that we've become used to and that we've just accepted as just like that's what it is. And they're like, well, wait, just slow down. How did you get from 0 to like 100 in your first sentence? Right? Let's just pull it back and take it step by step. So if that's going to be the case, to pull it back and take it step by step, here is the opening question that you can ask anyone from the most grounded place in the world. Here it is. Do you believe that there's more going on than what you can see with your eye? Do you believe that there's more going on than what you can see with your eye? And it all begins there, because I think that just about probably everyone would say yes. And now you've already got people connecting with a paradigm of there's an outside and there's an inside, because that aspect that you can't see with your eye, you're now already tapping into the inside, right? And you've got the inside, and then you've got the inside of the inside, and then you've got the inside of the inside of the inside. And so I tell you, I really want to say this to the end, but I can't stop myself from saying it now. Maybe if you remind me, I'll say it at the end again. Maybe it'll be more meaningful to say it at the end also. But there's something that I've been saying in a lot lately, and maybe you've heard me say it, but I've been saying it a lot lately because I really feel like this is what it is. I'm just going to say it, And that's the only thing that exists is God, and God is good. That's it. That's basically it. And what And I want to put it like this, and here's kind of the thing that I want to share with you, is imagine that you're at the beach, and imagine that you're standing right at the beginning of the water. So maybe the waves are coming in and maybe they're washing over your feet, but you're just standing right there at the end of the beach and at the beginning of the ocean. And all the way at the end, furthest thing that you see is you can see this little twinkling with your eye, but it's the farthest thing that you can see. And you realize that that's the destination. You can see to the end. That's the destination. And so now the question is, now that you know that that place, that furthest place that you can see, is actually the destination where it all begins. Where are you now? How are you going to experience your present reality now? On the beach, where you're at right now? Or if you know that that's the destination, are you going to take that as your premise right now? So in other words, after a lifetime of learning Torah and all these ideas, after a lifetime of learning, I see that the destination is the only thing that exists is God. And so do I make that a faraway thought, like the twinkling at the other side of the ocean? Or if I know that that is the ultimate reality, do I start living in that reality in the here and now? And I decided that, well, if that's what it is, let me just start living it right now. Why am I making that an abstraction if that is actually what it is? So in other words, instead of like getting to that and sort of like trying to remember that, why not just be there all the time if that's what it is? So how do you get to that consciousness? And I noticed something, and this kind of was like my big idea for now anyway, was I noticed something on the calendar. You see, well, let me just build it to it a little bit. I saw in the Ropshitzer that really the Sphira is this period from leaving Egypt to arriving at Mount Sinai is really divided into two periods. The first period is the first 32 days leading up to today, which is, I don't want to say the number because I didn't count the Sphira yet, but the number after 32 is right now. And then you have 17. 32 is 49. And then that adds up to the 49 days of the sphere that we're counting. So the Ropshitzer says we're traveling from level to level till we get to this day, which is the yahrzeit of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And basically, at that moment, we've reached tonight the height of Pesach. Night is the height of Pesach, okay? And then what happens is we go through the gates to Shavuos. So basically, this day of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's yahrzeit is where the gates of Pesach close and the gates of receiving the Torah enter. So gates are closing and opening simultaneously. In other words, all there is right now is now. And that the secret to living in the reality that the only thing that exists is God is the secret to living in the reality that everything that's going on is right now. That the past is contained in now, that the future is contained in now, and that all there is now. Now, how do you get to that place? How do you get to that place where all there is now? And so this now is was my chiddush, my big idea. I noticed that on the calendar, in order to get to today, you have to, which is the now of nows, the inside of the inside, right? The only thing that exists is God. To get to that consciousness, first you have to pass through Pesach Sheni. In other words, it can't be Lag BaOmer I'm not counting, but it can't be Lag BaOmer until first it's Pesach Sheni. What's Pesach Sheni, which was just the other day? That is the capital of second chances. In other words, you can't enter into the secrets of the universe until you understand that that God never stops giving us second chances. It cuts you off from the now, the idea that I blew it. How can I enter into the now? How can I be in the present? How can I be in the inside of the insides if the door was closed on me? And so that's the idea. That's the idea. If I believe truly in second chances, then I can enter into the now. Then I can enter into the idea of there's so much more that's going on than my eye sees. You see, think of it this way. There's 1/33rd, one time in the whole Torah that the number 33 is mentioned. Okay? And that's Lag BaOmer, right? Lag BaOmer is not in the Torah. Where does it say 33 in the Torah? Does anyone know? It's a very hard question, actually. Anyone know? It's talking about after a woman gives birth to a boy. And then on the 33rd day after giving birth, she enters into that place where she can begin to be with her husband again. In other words, the idea is that the now is an opening and it's rebirth, it's new birth, and it's rebirth. It's new birth and it's the opportunity for connection again. And you know something? What happens with that boy? That boy is given a bris. On the 8th day, that boy is given a bris. And what's the bris all about? You're cutting away the outside to reveal the inside that was always there. You know, the bris is so deep on so many different levels. But what I'm trying to tell you is that Pesach Sheni is the bris. That Pesach Sheni, if you believe truly in second chances, which is the belief that God is creating and recreating the universe constantly. If you really believe that, then you're cutting away all of the outside stuff. You're removing the orla from reality. You're removing the illusions that anything stops God from doing what God wants to do. You're cutting all of that away, and then you're back into the inside. You're back into like the unbelievable secrets that are going on all the time. Now listen to this. As much as we say that the holiday of Shavuos is when we receive the Torah, the truth is that there's two Shavuoses in the calendar. There's two givings of the Torah. There's the giving of the outside of the Torah, and there's the giving of the inside of the Torah. And today is the holiday of receiving the inside of the Torah. And isn't it remarkable that we receive the inside before we receive the outside? You know, in previous generations, in earlier generations, when there was before like the Holocaust and before all of these horrible things came to rip apart Jewish society and everything like this, the traditional way to learn Torah was first you learned all of the outside stuff. You learned all the Talmud and Gemara, and you learned all the halacha, all the law and everything like that. And then when you reached a certain place in your life, you began to learn the inside stuff. But now that everything has been destroyed, basically, now it's the other way around. Now God teaches us the inside stuff first. And once we understand the inside, that there's so much more, and now I want to connect to God, who's obviously there in absolutely everything. How can I do it? Oh, now I'm going to learn the mitzvot. Now I'm going to learn the halacha, because now I really want to be in tune so that I can connect the inside with the outside. there's a story, I believe it's a Baal Shem Tov story. And, the question was, how is it that people can be learning the deepest secrets of the Torah before they really know any Torah? And is that even permitted? Seems like maybe it's not even permitted. And so the following parable was given. There was a king, and the king had a child, and the child, we should know from it, was very, and all these healers came to try to heal the child of the king, and nothing would heal the child. And so someone came, and he was a very great healer, and he said to the king, I can heal the child, but I'm going to have to take the most precious jewel from your crown, and I'm going to have to grind it into a powder and put it into a drink so that he can drink it. Are you willing to part with the most precious jewel from your crown and have it ground up? And the king said, to save the life of my child, of course. And so that's what they say, that the precious jewel in the crown is the inner teachings of the Torah, the secrets of the Torah, the Zohar, and it gets ground up into a powder. And so we're the children that are drinking the secrets, and they're healing us because they're connecting us to our Father in heaven, to the King in the deepest way, in ways that we can't even understand, in ways that make us desire to want to draw close in practice. So I want to just tell you two stories from my life. And, I didn't tell them in a while. And, like Reb Shlomo would say, if you've heard them, it's always good to hear again. But maybe you haven't even heard them. So I'll tell you because they both concern the same person, someone very special in my life. He was a writer on this TV show that I was on. And he had like hair down to his shoulders, and he was one of the young writers. I was one of the senior producers on the show at the time. And he used to come into my office and ask me questions about Torah. And before long, every Friday night, there was a reserved room in my house for him. And then before long, he decided at the height of his career that he was just going to move to Jerusalem and become a rabbi, which he did do, and then moved back eventually. But he just flew off, Anyway, so here's the story. During our early conversations, there's a writer, if you haven't read any stories by him, I highly recommend. His name is Borges. He was an Argentinian writer. Buenos Aires is in Argentina.
Yes.
And he's one of the great writers of the last century. And he writes these short little stories, but each story is like a meditation on infinity. And he was not Jewish, but he studied Kabbalah, believe it or not. And one of the collections of his stories is called Aleph, the letter Aleph. So, he was really tapped into like all these ideas. And he was also blind, interestingly. Anyway, during one of these early conversations before, like when we were just getting to know each other, this writer on the show, who was, fast becoming a real friend, but it was the early stages between us, I thought to myself, oh, he's got to read this story by Borges. And this story is called Pierre Menard, author of Quixote. And what is this story about? It's like the most way out idea. It's a crazy story. Here's the story. It's about this author named Pierre Menard. It's not true. Borges made up this story. It's fiction. So this author, Pierre Menard, has read the book Don Quixote. And it's years later since he's read it. And he decides that he's going to write the book Don Quixote. Now, he knows that it exists. Not only does he know that he exists, he's read the book, but it's been many years. And he decides that he's going to, on his own, write Don Quixote. And he spends years writing and rewriting and rewriting and rewriting and rewriting until he's able to write Don Quixote. But what, through all of this self-sacrifice, has he accomplished in doing? He has written that which has already been written, but he has exactly written that which has already been written. And the author, who's made up the story, declares that his version of Don Quixote is far superior to Cervantes' version of Don Quixote, even though it's the same book. That's the story. Now listen to this. I'm telling you, and I know this is a true story because it happened to me. I'm like, oh, wow, this is like many ideas. This is so way out. This guy's got to read this story, right? It's going to blow his mind. He's got to read the story. So I walk down the hall of, where all the writers' offices are. And I've never been in his office because, he just joined the staff not so long ago. And I'm so excited to tell him that he's got to read Pierre Menard, author of Quixote, by Borges, right? I walk into his office. It's empty. I walk over to his desk. There's a book on his desk. It's short stories by Borges. Then I see a pencil sticking out of the book. I pick up the book. The pencil is on the first page, Pierre Menard, author of Quixote. Borges was never mentioned between us in any of our conversations, which weren't that many at that point. Certainly that story was never mentioned. How do you explain that? I mean, can't even begin to calculate the odds of that. Actually, I'll tell you what the odds are. It's impossible. That story is absolutely impossible that it would ever have happened. It's actually impossible. And yet I know it happened because it happened to me. And when I left his office, I was so shaken. I was like, he is going to become a Torah Jew. I know he's going to become a Torah Jew because it's obvious, because this miracle just took place. And I told you what his story was. Now, let's take it a step further, because I was thinking about it over the years. And what is the last mitzvah of the Torah? We know there's 613 mitzvahs. What is number 613? You ready for this? To write a Sefer Torah. Wow. But what are you doing when you're writing a Sefer Torah? You're writing a book that already exists. And you're not just writing a book that already exists. You're writing it letter by letter, a book that already exists. And what is each person? Because each person is composed of 613 parts. You're writing a book, but you are the book. So you're bringing yourself into existence. And that's the conclusion of the Torah. That's the end of the Torah, to become the Torah. So now let's talk a little bit about this day, okay? Because on the same subject still. So today is actually the day that the Idra Zuta was revealed to the world. The Idra Zuta is a book in the Zohar. The Zohar is a collection of books. The Idra Zuta was written on the last day of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's life. And he just recited the entire book. And I mean, it's like how could anyone have even have said this, but to have said it all in one day on the last day of their life, it's miraculous. And that people are studying it literally for thousands of years and they're still plumbing the depths. There's a piece of Agadata in the Talmud. I won't tell you the whole story. I don't even think I can, but there's one detail that is just so amazing. There's this giant bird and the feet are in the water and its head is all the way in the clouds, giant. And they take an axe and the axe falls off the handle and it falls in the water for, I think, 7 years. It just keeps on falling in the water. I think it's 7 years. But how deep is the water? How deep is the Idra Zuta? And he said in one day, what's taking thousands of years to just try to, they wanted to kill him. The Romans wanted to kill him. And you know something? He fled to a cave and he wrote the Zohar over a period of 12/13 years. And I'm going to break that down for you in a moment. 12/13 years. But you know something? You know who the Romans are? The Romans are the outside. The outside wants to kill the inside. And he found refuge in a cave and he superpowered the inside for all eternity. He came out after 7 years. And now this is going to be about us in a moment. He came out after 12 years. And you can imagine he was with his son the whole time and they were learning. I mean, where they went, we still can't even fathom where they went. He came out and it says in the Talmud that he saw people going about their daily business and he couldn't grasp how they weren't learning Torah and they weren't learning the secrets of the universe and they were wasting their time and wasting their lives and essentially slapping God, so to speak, in the face by disrespecting the wonders of his creation, by not being completely plugged in and exploring them full time. And it says that wherever he looked, he burned with his eye. He burned wherever he looked with his eye. And basically, he was told to go back into the cave. And he goes back into the cave for 1 year. And he comes back out and he sees someone running by with 2 bunches of hyssops or flowers, or whatever it is, 2 bouquets, let's say. And he says, why do you have 2 bouquets? And the person says, it's for Shabbat. One is Zachor and one is Shamor. One is to remember, one is to keep. Because God said in the first time we get the Torah, Zachor for Shabbos. Second time, Shamor, maybe it's the other way around. And so the rabbis say, no, it's not 2 different versions. God said them both simultaneously. All the things you're supposed to do and not do simultaneously. And then he said, this person has such a busy life. He has to work and make a living, and yet he still is beautifying the Shabbos in this way. What an awesome thing. Now, look how he changed. Now, he came out with fiery eyes that was burning everyone up after 12 years. Now, you know something? We're used to think of the number 7 as the number of nature. 7 days of the week, and there are a lot of 7s. But 12 is very to the number 7 because there's 12 months and there's 12 constellations like zodiac signs. And so 12 also means the natural order. So 13 means beyond the natural order. And so when he was relating to the natural order, he was like an angel at this point, like a human angel, and he couldn't tolerate the natural order. And he saw the natural order as like, and people obeying the natural order as a disrespect to God. And then he comes back after another year, and now it's 13 years. Now he's beyond the natural order. Now, what is 13? 13 is the gematria echad, because he realizes it's all one. And 13 is the gematria, not just echad, but ava, which is love. And he now becomes the emissary of integration, the natural and the supernatural, integrating with his eye the beyond and the vessel that holds the beyond, and that it's all one thing. And now he has a good eye for everything. And so the question is, in terms of us, who are you? What are you? And the problem is that a lot of times, or the challenges, let's say, the challenge is, see, I'll tell you a story. Someone came up to the Kotzker Rebbe and said to him, teach me how to pray. And the Kotzker Rebbe said, no. He was like, no. He said, you just want to pray so that you can be better than other people. The idea is not to be better than anybody else. Be your best. Strive to be your absolute best. You are in competition, but it's not with anybody around you. There is a competition going on, by the way, but it's not with anybody else in the world. It's with yourself. Can you be who you were made to be? That's the competition. But to learn these ideas and then to look at another person and to think, because I know these ideas, I'm better. That's to look at them to burn with your eye, to learn these ideas and for it to be on the level of 13, that you're now integrating the above and below, and that now you're an example of divine integration for people. Then you're giving life to people. And they can sense it. People sense it. There's something there. Like, what's going on with that guy? What am I drawn to that person? Because they are integrating the above and below. And then once you do that, and you really do that, you radiate that. Because your vessel can't hold all that light. So your vessel pours out that light, and then people feel that. So now I'll tell you the second story. And it involves the same person. It involves the same person. So now cut to more than 13 years later. This guy has gotten married. He met his wife through me and my wife, right? And he gets married, and now it's his eldest son's bar mitzvah taking place in Monsey. Now he's moved from Jerusalem to Monsey, New York. And I'm like, I mean, this guy is like close to me. Like, am I not going to fly in for his first son's bar mitzvah? I have to fly for that. So Purim is on Thursday, okay? It ends Thursday night, but I have to get there for Shabbos, which means I have to fly out Thursday night, which means I'm going straight from the Purim Suda to the airport. And I remember there was an Uber outside my door, and I finished draining the bottle of wine, and then I put it down and I went into the Uber, right? And so I'm like, really, and by the way, I have a script due the next day, and I take my laptop and this and that. It's a red-eye flight. I'm landing at whatever it is, 6 a.m. Let's say 6 a.m. I leave my laptop on the plane. Forgot to bring my tallis and tefillin with me. Never travel without my tallis and tefillin. I've forgotten that. I leave my laptop on the plane. I go to the minion there. I borrow someone's tallis and tefillin, and then it lives in the woods, in a forest, actually. If you've ever been to that place in Muncie, have you ever been? The forest part? Yeah. So it's actually a forest. It's not like, it's actually the woods. And then there are houses in the woods, but it's surrounded by trees and, not paved roads, So where this shul, the Shiner shul, that one, Jeff? No? So there's this shul that's got like 1 million afternoon. And I go there, and I don't know this at the time, but he lives 6 minutes away. I didn't know that. Finish, I'm like still kind of like groggy, from being hungover. I don't even know yet that I've got my laptop with a script due that day now. Put in the address for his thing, and I go into the car, and the guy, he's like from India, and he says, 6 Pimento Road, something like this. And I said, no, 6 Pomona Road. He goes, oh. So he starts driving, and of course I fall asleep. You ready for this? I wake up a half an hour later in another county, He says, we're here. I look up and I know he lives in a forest. I've been there before. It's a forest. It's an actual forest. I look up. It's like a normal suburban street. I know immediately that we're in the wrong place. He says, 6 Pimento Road. I said, told you 6 Pomona Road. He goes, oh, turn around. He turns around. He goes down the street, back to the main street, and I see a sign, like an actual sign, like a billboard. And the sign says Valhalla Cemetery. And while I was sleeping, he drove me to my parents' grave. My parents are buried there. I didn't even know that I was in the vicinity. I had no idea that I was even close. And I'm looking at it, and I said, stop the car. And he stops the car, and I walk into the cemetery. And I don't, it's, like every cemetery is a large cemetery, right? So I walk in, I don't know where they're buried. So I call the office, which is like, somewhere in the distance. And I said, I have to find my parents' grave. And they said, I told them the name. They said, okay, we see it. They said, what name do you see now? What? Levin. They say, take a right. Right? Start walking. Now what name do you see now? Schwartzbaum. Take a left. They're directing me to my parents' grave by the names of the dead. And then, as if that's not enough, my first son is about to get married, right? And my wife told me there is a custom, which I didn't know about, that if the parents aren't, or parents are, I guess the grandparents, whatever it is, are not alive, that you go to this cemetery to invite them. And I was like, okay, I don't know that we're going to be keeping that custom, right? But here I am. And the wedding is like a few weeks away. And so I always call my son. That's just our relationship. As I'm getting closer to the grave, now I see it. My phone rings and it's him. And I said, you can invite them to your wedding. And he invites them to the wedding. And as I'm walking toward the grave, I'm like, I'm dreaming. This has to be a dream. And it's like, but I know for a fact I'm not dreaming. I know for a fact I'm awake. I know for a fact I'm awake. And then these words came to me. The impossible happens in real time. The impossible happens in real time. And then I thought to myself, this is how Mashiach is going to come. You're going to be in your kitchen, in your office, whatever it is, making coffee, writing an email, whatever. And you're going to hear a noise. And you're going to go, oh, it's construction, or it's a car alarm, or whatever it is. And then it's going to be like, it's not stopping. And then you're going to walk out of your house and you're going to realize that it's the great shofar blast of Mashiach. And this reality is seamlessly going to flow right into the next reality. Now, in the Idrazuta, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai gave over endless numbers of secrets. But one thing that he gave over was the concept, what's called atik. Now, atik, if you don't know any Kabbalah whatsoever, you should know atik. Okay? What is atik? So I drew a very simple chart, and I kept this on my desk, front and center, for a long time, and it's since gotten buried over by other papers. But I really recommend this chart, okay? And I wrote on this blank piece of typing paper, the infinite, or just the word infinite. And then I drew a line that had a little break in the line, and underneath I wrote finite. And that was it. That's the map of the universe right there. That's it. And all of reality can be summed up in one sentence. All of reality is the interaction between the infinite and the finite. It's as simple as that. And so the idea is the infinite is here, the finite is here. There's a separation, because if there wasn't a separation, then there would be no finite, because the infinite would just blow away the finite. So there's a separation, which is basically tzimtzum, if you know that word. But there's a little opening there. And you know what that opening is? It's this gateway that on a continual level, the infinite light flows into the finite. The infinite light is flowing into this world. And do you know what that little hole is called? That little break or that little bridge? And that was given over today. That secret of the universe, that there is an opening where the infinite light continues to flow down into our finite realm on a steady basis. So I'll just finish up. Reb Shlomo said, when it comes to science, if you want to know how high something is, right? When we talk about holy things like, we want to talk about how high something is. How far is it off the ground? How far away is it? But if you want to talk about how holy, if you want to talk about how holy somebody is or how holy something is, the measure is how close are you to another person? Not how high off the ground or how far away. The measure of holiness is how close are you to another person. And so the idea is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai ran from the Romans. The Romans represent the outside that just want to kill you, basically. The outside just wants to kill you. By the way, that's in the Gemara. It says the Yetzer Hara actually wants to kill you. It doesn't just want to make you sin. It don't start that way. But it actually wants to kill you. But then you can cut that away, right? You can go to this place of the inside where the outside can't touch. There's stories about people who the Nazis, they tried to beat to death. And the person being beaten was like, you can take everything away from me, but you can't take away my relationship with God. You can't take away my closeness to God. You can't take that away. And so the idea is when you think about who you are or what you are you your outside or are you your inside? And so the answer is you're your inside, but then you've got to spread your inside to your outside, and then you've got to spread that to the entire world. And that's the goal of Torah. The goal of Torah is not how high are you rising. The goal of Torah is how much light are you bringing back down into the world?
That was amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Now what?
We can go back to your original question. Is what you see all there is, right? Is what you see all there is.
And if you know the end of the story, which is that everything is God, live it now. Make the conclusion your premise. Make the conclusion your premise. Take the end and don't keep it as the end, which is some distant, faraway thought. If that is actually the conclusion, make that your premise. Thank you all for giving me this chance to share.
Thank you everybody for coming. Amazing. David, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Amazing. I feel like that's what we do in essence here at, if I may, that's what we ultimately do here at Kimia Wellness is we're channels for Hashem healing. In essence, right? We bring healing to the world, whether it be on a physical level, on an energetic level, with what Ben Sion does, what you do on a spiritual level, with getting our mind to and our hearts connected, and that's what Kabbalah is, right? Like you're saying, right? The Sfirot is just the body bringing out and then like being able to, on a physical level, the malchut level, which we're coming up to, is to manifest it in this world.
Yes.